Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Sabrina Daly.
And I'm Isana Cayetano. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a lovely Monday morning, Isani.
Yes, it is, man.
I'll tell you this much, Isani. I'm always excited to do a morning show on the on a Monday because you're well rested from the weekend. It doesn't feel like the Tuesday to the Friday. I am, I'll tell you. But nonetheless, how was the weekend? Good, I hope.
Yeah, I can't complain, man. I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning and I said, you know what, let me just do something different and just, instead of the usual look, I'll just kind of switch it up a bit and come sort of casual. But nah, it doesn't reflect what I'm here to do. It's just my mood this morning. But you're asking about the weekend. Man, wow. On Friday, there was a basketball game at the Civic Center. There were also a bunch of other activities that were taking place that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show. But across the weekend, people are out and about doing things. A couple of my friends went out to the islands. Yeah. The rest of us stayed at home. It was pretty warm.
Yeah, it was
Not much
warm.
is true, but yeah, the rest of us, kind of just chill at home. Spent time with my kids, stuff like that. Yeah.
You know what? There's a lot of activities to do over the weekend, but I always encourage spending time with family, so that's lovely.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can go into what's buzzing as well, since we're on the topic of lighter topics, that is. I guess we could touch a little bit on coronation, but of course we will delve into it further in Eye on the News. But there was a huge worldwide event, and it brought in a lot of guests. Of course, it was also streamed live that you were able to view as well. But it was history in the making for Great Britain, and yeah, a lot of conversations took place after that.
Well, a lot of conversations took place before that.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I'll reserve any further comment on that for the Eye on the News and then the actual segment that we're going to have later on in the show. But yes, I guess people who are in tune with what's taking place with the monarch definitely followed what was happening over the course of the weekend.
Yeah.
I know that I saw the Belizean flag as a feature in the entire ceremony that was taking place. And I think, as a Belizean, that's always a warm feeling for, whatever that's worth going forward, so to speak.
We also spoke about the National Dance Company having their big performance over the weekend. We spoke about that on Friday, so that was held as well. I saw a lot of posting on social media, so I was told that it was a absolutely successful event, and if you weren't there, you weren't anywhere.
Well, here's the thing, right? What you're seeing here was a feature story that we did on Thursday for the Belize Unreal. And this, of course, is the preparation and, everything that was going into getting the show together for Saturday. Mm-hmm. And what I love about this is the evolution of the Belize National Dance Company. Founded by Rosita Baltazar many years ago.
I believe it was 1990.
90 or 91, somewhere thereabout, right? And it's been through its iterations in terms of people at the helm of the group and, the group changing members as we go along. You know how that goes, right? You start off with a small group of people who are dedicated to the craft. Over time, there's expansion and people drop out and people join in and that sort of stuff. But for me, the idea of keeping this alive, it's a sort of a legacy for Belize where it comes to the performing arts. The Belize National Dance Company incorporates various different genres of music, styles of dancing that are for the most part, native to Belize. So you get that Creole vibe in there, you get the Garifuna drums, you get perhaps a little bit of the Hispanic or the mestizo vibe. Everything that, you know, encapsulate us as a country, they are able to perform on stage.
Yeah, I mean, in dance, in the form of dance, it was a celebration of culture. And I'm so happy that they were able to really showcase or debut one of their biggest performances over the weekend. And they did mention that it would be only one of its kind. That would be the only time that they would be performing that particular show. So if you missed it, better luck next time whenever they have their other performances. But I think for me, what I appreciated was that it was kind of like them starting over, them saying, hey, we're here and we're starting afresh and we're ready to showcase the team that we have, the members of the dance company that they have, and it's kind of like a breath of fresh air, especially for the arts.
Definitely. I think, you know, what I've been noticing over a period of time, fairly recently at that, a lot of the legacy groups have been reuniting and they've been doing their reunion, you know, tours or concerts and what have you. And it's refreshing, you know, if you think about the Punta Rebels, if you think about other groups that you know, were staples in our entertainment, our local entertainment industry several years ago, and the fact that they've joined forces once again to, you know, put off a comeback tour, and then now you have the BNDC, hey, it harkens back to either my childhood or my adolescence, you know, growing up in Belize.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing I want to say is that I appreciate the arts, and I know that so many other people appreciate it as well. But we want to move into something a little bit different that's also art related. We gave you a little bit of a sneak peek, or what do I say? There was an eye emoji that was spreading all over social media, and that's because KTV The Remix took a peek out on social media, and it had the entire, I'm going to say the entire Belize buzzing. KTV is back, Isani, and everyone is excited. You know already how that works.
Look, this is the time of year when we're scouting for Belizean talent, right? And I'll say this much. What KTV has been able to do is to break certain Belizean artists into the entertainment industry, right? I think of folks like the good Marilyn Vanson, right? Marilyn Vanson and all of these other people who have participated in various forms of our live television productions. But KTV specifically, it's a time of year where if you have talent in singing, you know, this is your showcase, this is your opportunity to come on the stage and show the world, show Belize and the rest of the world what you're made of. And the good thing about it is that while at this point we have not yet debuted the new ad to promote the season, we're giving you advance notice, so that's a good thing about it. So you could,
I mean, that's
you know,
what
get
I
in front of your mirrors in your bathroom and try a thing once, you know, one time and see how well you'd be able to pull it off.
No, I mean, I was laughing when I saw it because we did not even put out a proper ad. All we did was post a little eye emoji on social media, and it completely created a stir. There was a lot of shares, a lot of engagement, comments, likes, and it really goes to show how much the Belizean public and even our viewers abroad appreciate this entertainment here from Channel 5. It's, of course, a family event where you could bring your families out, you can watch at home, you can go there live as well. But it really, really is appreciated. I think this is one of the biggest entertainment shows that we have to offer here in Belize. And, I mean, as you mentioned, it has impacted so many young and older artists when it comes to refining their singing, the training that they get during the actual series as well, and the performance that they're able to grow on as well. So it's not even just refining their vocal talent, but their stage presence, and they even build up a fan base while they're there. So it's a great start for young singers,
Yeah.
and it's an even bigger push for persons that are already in the light, that are they just enjoy singing.
Well, if you're looking for the exposure for, you know, either persons who know of your capabilities or your skills on stage, or to gain a new audience of people who would not necessarily be aware that you are a singer or a performer, then that is a platform for you to be able to do so.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, over the years, we've been able to, and I hate using this cliche, but it's fitting, move from strength to strength where that is concerned. You know, building that anticipation from the Belizean public for this kind of a showcase. Being able to allow performers to take the stage and as well be able to display what they have in terms of either singing, dancing, choreography, all the things that come along with musical entertainment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you mentioned, it's a show of fun. You get to grow on your
Yeah.
talent. But aside from that, there's a hefty cash prize. And
Of
if that's
course.
not an incentive, then I don't know what else is. But we're going to keep things moving, and we want to take it over to Eye on the News.
So as you alluded to at the start of the show, the 6th of May, Saturday, was the coronation of King George III.
King Charles.
King Charles, I'm thinking of someone else. Yes, stand corrected there. But yes, there was the coronation of King Charles III on Saturday. And it's an interesting conversation to have this morning, simply because from what I've been able to read in the media and some of the responses and the reactions of other people far and wide, it's up in the air in terms of what the public sentiment is with regards to the monarchy and perhaps the role or the significance of the monarchy in present day. I think many people view it as simply ceremonial for the most part, because there's no longer any teeth or any sway, so to speak.
Almost like antiquated.
Yeah, well, it's a time-honored tradition to have a king and a queen in certain parts of the world, so it fits in that context. But in terms of the actual, you know, influence or gravitas, it's no longer there. So when you look at what people are saying, both at home and abroad, in terms of being able to look at this spectacle that took place on Saturday, yes, it was majestic, it was beautiful, all the pomp and circumstance and everything that comes along with that kind of an event was there, and if you're looking for that, you were certainly satisfied that they brought out all the bells and whistles. But if you're looking beyond that, then, you know, there's a broader conversation to be had. You know, what about all the past colonies, you know, that are still clamoring for reparation? What about, you know, the fact that while, yes, a majority of those colonies turned countries and nation states in and of themselves are a part of the Commonwealth, there are still certain conversations that are being held collectively where certain issues are yet to be addressed by the monarch. Why is there no apology for slavery and all of these other atrocities that took place, you know, during that particular period of time, you know? And so those are some of the conversations that are being had, you know, particularly amongst, you know, countries that were once colonies of Great Britain, right? So the coronation, again, there's a lot to be held in terms of discussions regarding the matter. I'll say one quick thing here before I throw it over to you, Sab. The article that was published fairly recently by Oliver Laughlin of The Guardian, I think it was an eye-opener. And as someone who read the article in its entirety, it was enlightening to get perspectives from across the world, including the Belizean point of view where the monarchy is concerned. But at the same time, you know, these are things that for the most part we all knew. Now, what I will say is, before reading the article, admittedly, I did have my own preconceived notions of perhaps where that was going. When I sat down and read the article, which is a long form, I gained a better understanding of the direction and how everything came together. Enough to say this, that part of the mandate of the People's Constitutional Commission is, in fact, to be able to, at some point in time, inform the government of Belize as to the direction that we should go in terms of this particular discussion, all right? Which means then that if it boils down to us having a national vote as to whether or not we want to move to become a republic, then that is down the road somewhere. But the fact that the conversation is already being held and there is a working group, a task force, so to speak, that has been established to look at, among other things, this very issue, I think is a step in the right direction in terms of, you know, getting from the people exactly what their position is on something as, well, I would want to say controversial, but at the same time, there are people who really could care less, you know, about the monarch, and they just want to do away with our colonial past. But it's a conversation that we're having nonetheless.
And I want to point out the end of what you mentioned, where there's sort of like a divide in persons and their views of the monarchy, because some people either respect them or don't, but also maybe not so much acknowledge or recognize our colonial past. And that was a part that really stood out to me in the article that you mentioned, because we will be having a guest on the show to further expound on this. But Dr. Young mentioned that perhaps Belizeans don't recognize that we're still almost kind of colonialized, but we don't necessarily acknowledge it. And that really resonated with me, because I feel like that's a conversation that we don't really have very often, especially the younger population. There's very few that are more interested in learning about this this history of Belize. Of course, it also touched on landmarks in Belize that were significantly tied to slavery. One of them that really stood out to me, of course I knew this, but I think I didn't really spend too much time thinking about it, and perhaps that's the same for many Belizeans, is the history of the old Channel 5 building that housed slaves. And really having that conversation about slavery in Belize, some people would even go as far as saying that it wasn't that very serious as compared to the US. And I think that is maybe one of the reasons why we don't have the conversation often, because when you put it side by side with the US, it's...
Make no mistake, slavery
did exist
was a crime against humanity. Yeah, it did exist in Belize, certainly, but wherever it was, it's a crime against humanity, right?
Yeah.
You're holding people against their will. You're forcing them to, in the case of the transatlantic slave trade, persons were abducted essentially from mainland Africa, brought to this side of the world, you know. In many cases, they were brought in from different tribes in Africa. So you could imagine being uprooted from what you know to be home and the people you know to be your family, placed on a ship, brought to this side of the world, and then being indentured, to work countless hours under, you know, inhumane circumstances. So like I said, make no mistake, it doesn't matter if it was the cotton fields or the mahogany or the sugar plantation, or the tobacco, it doesn't matter. Slavery
I don't say that
against humanity.
We're not recognizing that it was inhumane and it was a humane crime, What I'm saying is that I feel, and this is personally my view, I feel that, and also what I took from the article as well, is that there's almost like a generational divide when it comes to the recognition of slavery.
Well, certainly there is.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, fully understood.
So really reading the article that you mentioned in its entirety, really, it was an eye-opener for me as well. Of course, as you mentioned, with this coronation taking place, and even before that, there were several conversations of the current challenge of the monarchy in securing its legitimacy during this time, the 21st century. A lot of people think that it's antiquated or that it's simply ceremonial at this point. So one of their struggles right now, I believe, is just kind of showing that they're still needed or that they're still relevant.
Well, the question is how.
Yeah, and that is their issue. You know, that's their PR tactic, I guess, right now. But aside from that, as you mentioned, colonization is also a big conversation that has come out of this coronation, and where countries that were formerly colonized by British stands. We also saw news that came out where Belize and Jamaica started conversations about the possibility of transitioning as a republic. One thing I did not know was that Belize was the only other country aside from Barbados that could transition to be a republic without a referendum. All the other countries would have to partake in a national referendum.
Yeah, but I think in a situation such as this, a referendum is the right exercise to hold in terms of, you know, getting consensus on whether or not we want to move in that direction. I wouldn't want for it to be sort of foisted upon us based on a supermajority or whatsoever in the House. I mean, it's a conversation where everybody has his or her own views. There are generational gaps in terms of how people view Belize and its colonial past.
Definitely.
If you read the article and you saw where our past colleague Brighton Codd weighed in, and his was an interesting point.
Yeah, you know, I really appreciated
it demonstrates fully where that divide is, where he's talking about his grandparents, his grandmother, you know, singing God Save the Queen and having the words committed to memory, and whereas he doesn't even know and doesn't even care, because when he was born, the Union Jack had already been lowered and the Belizean standard had already been raised on September 21st, 1981. And everything forward is all that matters to the younger generation of us Belizeans, right? And so, again, like I said, this is a conversation that we're going to be having going forward. I think that's what comes out of the May 6th coronation, in England. Now, let's move to another conversation that is also being had in terms of industry and economics, which has to do with the standoff, once again, between the stevedores and their employers at the Port of Belize Limited. On Friday afternoon, there was to have been a meeting of a tripartite group, so to speak. They include the Christian Workers Union, the representative body for the stevedores, the management of the Port of Belize Limited, and the Ministry of Labor. And this, of course, has to do with this impasse with respect of the rotation of gangs that work the cargo vessels that come into port in Belize. And what is regrettable about this entire thing is that both parties, the CWU and the PBL, have expressed a willingness to sit at the table and iron out this entire issue, but they're yet to actually do so. And in the interim, everyone is taking a loss.
Everyone's losing money.
Right? And this was manifested on Friday when a cargo vessel decided to move on because they weren't going to stay here uncertain of when the containers would be discharged off that ship and when it would be loaded with goods to take out. So they're like, okay, well, you know what? we're just going to move on. And that spells a significant loss for all the players involved here. The stevedores don't make their wage, the Port of Belize loses money, and no one wins. So it's perhaps easier. And one of the things here is that on the previous day, the president of the CWU openly said, well, why hasn't the Ministry of Labor intervened? Because they were a third party to this entire agreement that was in place, right? Albeit a neutral body to oversee that both sides, you know, were acting in good faith with each other and what have you. When this did not work out, Mose essentially called out the Labor Commissioner and the Labor Department. So when they met on Friday, it was with a view to say, well, look, let's bring everybody together and let's figure this thing out. Lo and behold, the Port of Belize issued its own statement, and then the CWU countered with its own statement, where they're essentially playing the blame game once again. And as I mentioned earlier, amidst all of this, money is being lost.
Yeah.
Customers who are awaiting their goods to be delivered aren't being satisfied.
And that creates even more chaos because then, I mean, customers, as you mentioned, that are awaiting their goods, they're trying to get those goods for their customers as well. So there's a shortage in things that are needed. Aside from that, it's just extremely chaotic. So, of course, we will be continuing to follow this story. And, yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to cover for Eye Opener?
Well, those are the primary conversations that, you know, I wanted to touch on this morning based on things that are happening and, you know, events that took place over the weekend. Certainly there's a lot more for us to cover. Those stories you would be able to catch at 6 p.m. in our evening newscast. Again, if you're unable to get in front of your television sets at that time, it's not a problem. You can catch us on Facebook and, of course, YouTube. That does it for the Eye on the News.
All right, that was Eye on the News, and of course we're moving things over to the weather. I firstly want to say I enjoyed the weather, Isani. There was no rain, at least none that I can remember, and even the weather this morning was really good coming on to Belize City. I saw the sun bright and early this morning, and it was so red, it was so fiery red, and I just thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be hot. It's going to be very, very hot. But of course, we're going to move things over to the National Meteorological Service to get all the details formally of what we can expect. And we have on the line forecaster Krista Rosales with us. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
So we want to know what we can expect in terms of weather conditions today. What's the general situation looking like?
Seasonally hot and mostly dry conditions continue.
What can we expect in our 24-hour forecast?
Sunny with a few cloudy spells today, and then partly cloudy tonight with little or no rainfall expected.
Okay. Any advisories, watches, or warnings?
We have a heat alert still in effect, so residents, especially those inland, are advised to stay hydrated and avoid outdoor activity as much as possible, especially during the afternoon.
So in other words, what I saw with the sun this morning is probably correct. We can expect a lot of heat.
Yes.
In terms of the general outlook for the rest of the week on to Tuesday.
Okay, it's going to continue hot and mostly dry up until about Tuesday.
Okay. You have any highs and lows to share with us?
The highs for today, 88 along the coast, 97 inland, and 84 in the mountains. And the lows for tonight, 79 along the coast, 73 inland, and 68 in the hills.
All right. Well, thank you so much, forecaster Crystal. We truly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you heard it yourself from the National Meteorological Service. It's going to be hot all the way going to tomorrow. Expect sunny days and heat. And of course, stay hydrated. Stay indoors if you can.
Staying hydrated means being able to have your bottle of water, 8 glasses a day or something to that effect. And make sure that you're indoors for the most part, unless if you're forced to, you know, be out and about, and even then, you should be able to be fully hydrated.
Yes, yes. All right, well, we're going to move things along with what we can expect in the show lineup today, Sani. Of course, as you teased in the Eye on the News, we will be continuing the conversation about the coronation and, of course, Belize and the monarchy. So that is what you can expect in our first segment. We will be joined by Dr. Harold Young to tell us more, and I'm truly, truly interested in having that conversation as well.
And of course, it's Mental Health Month, which means that we will be discussing, you know, the state of mental health in Belize and how the issues that are associated with mental health are being addressed by the various agencies, various organizations, and of course by the people themselves who may be afflicted with mental health illness.
Yeah, it's so important to always have the conversation of mental health, simply because I believe, Isani, that as much as we have the conversation right now, and it has changed as well over the generations, there's never enough conversations that you can have about mental health. There's still very much a stigma associated with different types of mental issues. So it's important that we continue to have this conversation as often as possible, and even outside of Mental Health Awareness Weeks or months. But we're going to close things off in our third segment with BCVI. They're talking to us about their summer camp. So you're going to hear lots about what you can expect this summer. And it's crazy because I feel like the year just started, Isani, and now we're talking about the summer.
Well, we're already in the 5th month, right?
It doesn't
Before
even feel like it.
June is around and we're already halfway through the year.
I'll tell you, Isani, January took like 3 months to finish, and now we're in May. But we're gonna go on to our first break this morning, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Harold Young to have the conversation of the coronation, Belize, and the monarchy. Don't go away.
After a rough week of school, Jake and his friends decide to treat themselves to frozen coffee. And since they don't have cash on them, they decide to use eCash. With eCash's geolocation feature, Jake can easily find the nearest coffee spot. With eCash's built-in option to split bills, Jake can pay the bill and his friends can reimburse their portion of the bill. Jake scans the merchant's code and confirms payment. Jake then views his transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made, then taps the Split the Bill button, where he selects the Evenly option to evenly split the bill. The application splits the bill automatically. His friends receive and accept the request. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash makes Jake enjoy his digital lifestyle.
Explore the great outdoors with Benny's Quality and Savings.
Sign up for Smart Share Plan and save big. Whether you're a small entrepreneur starting up your business, a student on a limited budget, or a family trying to save, this is the plan for you. With unlimited SMS, calls, and data, we help you save. Get up to 5 lines for as low as $30 per line monthly, only with Smart. Sign up today at any smart showroom or sales manager countrywide. So get your business going, share more memories with friends, and be ready for the day with Smart.
From now on, when you visit Uno, you will experience an A+ power in all fuels. Dynamax has evolved into Dynamax Plus. The new formula with the ultimate technology and additives provides an A+ power and A+ performance. Dynamax Plus, available in diesel, regular and premium. Try it today and reach further. Uno, a different energy.
Are you looking for low-cost television advertising? Have we got a deal for you? Advertise on Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds is one of the most effective methods for introducing yourself and your business to the community. Use our Daily Classifieds to recruit employees, promote specials, promote your products or services, promote a business opportunity, increase traffic to your website, and advertise items you have for sale. Let us help you to save valuable time and money. Call us today at 280-0013 or visit us at our offices on Coney Drive to discuss how we can help your business grow affordably. Channel 5 Daily Classifieds. Advertise today.
Do you have information about a crime or a fugitive in our community? You can submit a tip anonymously with your smartphone. Using this program in safeguarding our community also protects your identity, keeping you out of the court system, and could earn you a cash reward. Here is how it works. Download the free P3 Tips app from the Apple Store or Android Market. P3 is the provider of our secure anonymous tip collecting software. Open the app and create a PIN, but be sure to remember that number, then select your location. Next, select the type of crime. When submitting a tip, be as specific as possible. If you have a picture, video, or audio that will help officers, you can upload them from your phone. Information leading to an arrest can earn you a cash reward of up to $1,000. Once your tip is submitted, you'll be given a tip ID and password. Check back if your tip leads to an arrest. You'll be told how much you were rewarded and how to anonymously collect your cash.
Ray, what's wrong? It's him. He hit me again. Oh my gosh. This time it was worse. He slammed my face in the wall and threatened to kill me. If you or someone you know is experiencing family violence, call 0800-WAY-OUT. Or you can text or WhatsApp to 672-9628.
Time to wake up. Time to prepare for the day. Time to learn. Time to make a difference. Time to look after yourself. Time to see your healthcare provider. Don't let cervical cancer stop you from unleashing your potential. Now is the time to get vaccinated. Now is the time to get screened. Now is the time to end cervical cancer. For more information, visit us at www.paho.org/endcervicalcancer.
And welcome back. Our first conversation this morning is with Dr. Harold Young. He is a professor as well as a former advisor for the People's Constitutional Commission. And as we mentioned earlier, the conversation we're about to embark upon has to do with Belize and the monarchy and all things that have to do with Belize's history where that is concerned. Good morning, Dr. Young.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure.
Honored to be here.
So this is a fairly broad topic, right?
Yes.
And there's so much that we want to get in a short space of time while we have you here.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, let's talk about your participation in the article that was published, because you provided historical context for the journalists who put the piece together. What was that like in terms of being able to enlighten him from our Belizean point of view?
Well, first of all, I'd say I'm not saying that I represented the entire Belizean view. I wouldn't be that presumptuous. But I've been around long enough to have a feel for Belizean history. And I was very enlightening and helpful for me to voice it to him. I've been involved in studying history and politics in Belize for a long time. And there is no doubt that we have a serious 42 years after independence, we have a serious colonial hangover. Colonialism around the world, not just Belize, but around the world, whichever European power it was a traumatic experience for people, whether it was indigenous people or peoples brought in as enslaved peoples. It was a traumatic experience, and the wounds take a while to heal, but they need to be healed. We have to do something to heal it. And I think that what we are experiencing now is this sort of, in political science they call it institutional, following institutions, right? You keep following what you're accustomed to, even though it's painful or it doesn't serve your purposes, right? You keep doing it because you're accustomed to it. And so I think that's part of what I try to communicate to him, that we are an independent country on, I don't want to say just on paper, we are an independent country, but our minds are still our mind, including my mind, I still have a colonial mentality.
You believe that colonialism still lingers in Belize?
Very much so.
Could you expand on that? Why do you believe so?
You want an explanation is that I was raised, first of all, let's talk about that, in a system where a lot of the history wasn't true. Let's start with that. A lot of things that we were taught in school that were in textbooks were not true about Belize, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we are conditioned by, not just in Belize, but by the world, that first world countries are better, right? That what comes from abroad is better. And it doesn't mean that it's not good or it cannot be helpful to us, speaking about Belize. It just means that you don't swallow it wholeheartedly, right? You have to be able to understand the context in which it's coming. And so an example, just to get straight into some of the things I know you all want to talk about, an example would be the idea that if we were to remove the monarch as the head of state of Belize, the Belizean dollar would devalue. That's a myth. That's a myth. And that's the idea that the British are somehow backing our currency. That our dollar has been tied to the US dollar for around 50 years. I mean, most people, and you probably saw the adjustment just the other day, announcement by the banks that it's not going to be 2 to 1, So that's a myth. So we are there with these myths. And then the other myth, which is a very serious one, is that the monarch has power. I'm not talking about like power in Belize, that has power in the UK. And the monarch doesn't have any power. They have ceremonial roles to play, right? But the parliamentary supremacy in the UK is paramount. It's even more, their parliament is even more, I don't like the word more supreme, but has even more power than our parliament, because they do not have a judiciary. The judicial branch in the UK cannot review and declare something the parliament does as being unconstitutional, while ours can. So the parliament in the UK is unparalleled in its supremacy.
Supreme authority.
So the idea that the monarch has some sort of influence over decisions that the political branch of the UK government makes is a myth. But we hold on to that, right?
And what feeds into that myth? It's the idea that some people have that if we are to move away from the monarch and Guatemala strengthens its position, that all of a sudden that England will come and save Belize. And I keep telling people that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
I will go further. I agree with you totally, and I've heard that many times. But I'll go further than that.
Yeah.
I had somebody actually say that if we retain the monarch would like influence the government. Because my response was that any move the UK government does is a political decision by the parliament. And they were like, well, the monarch could influence them to do it. I'm like, no, the monarch cannot.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the authority they can't influence anybody. So they even think that the monarch can influence the political wing to do something like send troops to Belize, for example. And that's not real.
So let me ask you this. In terms of our past with slavery, our past with colonialism, and the fact that perhaps not only as a country, but as a region that was formerly colonized by England, when we bring up the idea of reparations, how do we now say that Belize, speaking for us as a country, would have anything to gain if we go down that road, considering the fact that the monarch and the UK Parliament are separate bodies, and we've just accepted that the monarch is ceremonial and the UK Parliament, for instance, has the supreme authority. How would such a conversation be had?
Well, first of all, reparation discussion is not with the monarch. The reparation discussion is with the UK government. They were the ones that made all the rules and laws about enslaving people.
Yeah.
They were the ones that made all the rules about merchants being able to come and exploit. I'm using the word merchant to mean any sort of business person.
Yeah.
Right? Queen Elizabeth I was the one that gave privateers, the buccaneers that we think are, these wonderful people. They're the one that gave them the letters to go and pillage the Spanish realm, right? But it was also done by Parliament. Parliament was doing all this.
They backed it.
Yeah. So the idea of reparations has nothing directly to do with the monarch. Part of the discussion is that the monarch, as the head of state of the UK, should apologize.
Yeah.
They will never, let me put it this way, I don't think that they will ever use the word apologize. Because when you apologize for something, you are accepting culpability, which would automatically mean you could go to court and say, they have accepted they did something wrong, we require some sort of compensation. So they will say it was a dark time in history, they will say it was unfortunate, they would say,
but
they'll never...
other descriptives.
Right. So that's the first thing. The other big thing is the idea of reparations, that people think they're going to end up with $10,000 in their bank account. That's not what reparations means.
Yeah.
In the modern world, in our multi-connected world and the financial systems that we have, reparations means lots of things. That's a broad discussion that the government of Belize, or any government in the region or in the world that is dealing with their colonial power, has to deal with and do that. So there are lots of vehicles to deal with it. We have the UNDP, we have World Bank, we have IMF, we have lots of ways of multilateral agreements. We have lots of ways of dealing with what reparations mean, right? And I think, and even something like education, like opportunities for us to improve our education system with connections to universities that can provide resources to university. And I don't mean necessarily money, but expertise to help the universities. So things like that. Reparations is a very broad term.
Yeah.
And we need to think about it in that way.
Yeah. I want to take things
let
back.
me make one more point. One more point. Also keep in mind, when you think about reparations, that when slavery was abolished by the British Parliament, the slave owners were compensated for the loss of their property. Millions of pounds were paid. Right? Compare that to the United States, which had one of the bloodiest civil wars in the history of the world per capita, right? And there was nothing was paid to anybody, either way. But the British government actually passed and paid money to the slave owners.
Wow. We spoke about the myths of having that tie to the monarch and the fears that are associated with those myths if we should detach ourselves from them. I want to ask you to expand on what is the role then of the monarchy, of us being under the monarchy?
The role?
Or how do...
The Governor General on now King George III's, Charles III, sorry. George III was the one that was U.S. independence, I'm sorry. Charles III.
Mistake earlier.
The Governor General on the monarch's behalf signs our laws.
And that's it?
I mean, pretty much. I mean, there's...
It's all titular.
Yeah, it's just it's ceremonial. It's just titular. It doesn't have any
teeth in it.
Yeah, there has no teeth to it. If the governor, and I know there's an interesting question. This is an interesting question because it's a constitutional issue. If the Governor General decides not to sign a law, not to sign one of the acts of our Parliament, what you think would happen?
She would be replaced.
Yeah, they would just replace her or him.
Yeah.
They just replace.
But for all these years, the role of the Governor General has only been seen as a rubber stamp to whichever government is in
that's
power.
exactly what it is. It has no real role. And think about it. Let's use some real examples because, Guyana is the other mainland country in the British, what was the former British Caribbean, the British Commonwealth. And they have a territorial dispute with Venezuela. That's probably as long-standing as ours, and with oil involved now,
it's even more precarious.
Well, no, and they removed the monarchy in the 70s. And they,
I think it's a right time for us to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
Though, right? We're 42 years behind. September 21st, 1981.
Yes.
Some would say we're still very much a young nation.
Yes.
But we're getting there in terms of being able to have certain national and open discussions where our history and our future is concerned.
Yes.
And I think because of that, we're at a critical juncture to have the conversation. There's one thing that has been brought to the fore as a result of this very same topic is the widening disconnect or the gap between the younger generation and the older generation where Belize's past and its history and of course where we are at present are concerned. Referring back to the article that I read, that piece with Brighton Codd is what sticks out.
Yes.
And I'm certain that he doesn't only speak for himself when he shared that position. He was speaking for a lot of young people who don't know what the Union Jack is in that context.
Or
don't know God Save the Queen. They don't.
I actually don't really know.
Well, neither do I.
No, I understand.
He speaks for a large portion of us in our society in terms of that.
I think that's really true. But I want to let's make a point about the generational thing, because I've had some of these intergenerational discussions as well. And bridging the gap, there will never be a perfect time to do anything. There will never be a kumbaya moment where everybody is on one accord. Everybody agrees, right? And this post-independence generation, let's say anybody who is 40 and younger, would not remember, and we probably are not, I know they're not taught, that leading up to independence, there was a serious division within political parties. there wasn't a kumbaya moment at independence. That was a brave, bold political step by the then ruling party, which the opposition would have no part of. Right? So I actually spoke to somebody right here in Channel 5 last time, one of the times I was here, and the person said, we need to have a time like when everybody was together for independence. I'm like,
that never happened.
No, that never happened. That's a myth. I was there.
Yeah. We were as divided as we ever were.
Yes. So, but I'm not against. I'm not saying we need to have more education, more information. That's not, but the goal shouldn't, I don't think we should set a ridiculous goal like everybody must agree or be on the same page. Because that we'll never do anything. And so that goes back to one of the words I've been using a lot when it comes to this, is that we as a people, not necessarily everybody 100%, but we as a people collectively have to be brave. And we have examples where Belize has been brave. Belize was brave at independence. We've been brave enough to change governments, right? We've been brave enough to remove the Privy Council. So we've been brave enough to establish relations with Guatemala.
Brave enough to go to the ICJ.
We've been brave enough to go to the ICJ. Yeah, that's the last brave. So we can be brave.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require, as I said, a kumbaya moment where everybody is on the same thing. We can be brave, and we have to tighten our belts, girden our loins, you know, hold on and look at these issues square in the face. And I think that's where we tend to be timid in between those acts of those moments of bravery. But we can be brave, and we need to be.
As we wrap up this particular conversation, I know we'll have you with us still for a transition into another part. But I want to ask you, with the challenges of the monarchy currently, do you believe that the monarchy is at risk of losing its relevance?
Well, the relevance of the monarchy to the UK is a matter for the British people. I have no penny in that dollar. Or I don't have a cent in that dollar. There's a colonial thing. I said penny. There's a colonial part of me right there. There it came right out, right? As opposed to cent. We haven't had pennies in, I don't know, in my lifetime, right? Yeah, I don't have a cent in that dollar. Or I don't have a penny in that pound. So that's really a matter for them. But think about this. That event, the coronation event, costed £100 million, which is 125 million US dollars, which is $250 million US dollars. But that's a matter for them.
Yeah.
And if they, and it could be, they could argue, or I could say that, because I've spoken to many people, not many, but I've spoken to some people, I've been to the UK a number of times, that it's a tourist attraction.
Really?
That's
right?
Interesting, yeah.
It's a tourist attraction. But that's a matter for them.
Okay.
Not for us.
All right. Well, we're going to move things on to our second topic that we have you here to discuss, and that is the Pantheon Fantastic 2023. Just to give us a little bit of a background, what exactly is the Pantheon Foundation?
The Pantheon Foundation, it's an art project. It's an art foundation that is designed to promote art in general in Belize, give a platform for artists. And this is our second year, and every year we have a different art form. So last year it was painting, and this year it was poetry and performance. And we had some wonderful entries, and we have some of the winners here to present the prizes for them. So the idea is to build a platform for artists and build a new, additional stories for Belize, and additional art forms for Belize, additional art expressions for Belize, around the idea of the sleeping giant, which is a short story that I wrote, which I need to revise. Short story I wrote some years ago, which we can talk a bit more in the next segment. But the idea is that we are challenged as Belizeans to take care of Belize, to be good stewards of our country, and not just saving the jaguar, but stewards of ourselves, human people, in conjunction with the environment, flora, fauna, ocean, everything. So that's the charge of the story.
Yeah. So just to touch a little bit on the fact that you decided to advocate for this through the art, why art?
You know, it has a lot to do with, I think it has a lot to do with my, the constraints in my upbringing. And I'm sure there are people there who can sympathize with that, where arts were considered not the thing. You either be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, and an accountant, or a public servant, right? And guess which one I ended up being, right? So I think, and then I realized later on that no, art is an expression of being human.
Do you believe that there is enough that's being done to foster a love of art from a very young age in our educational system? I say educational system because perhaps not all of it starts at home where that is concerned, right? But at least when you're in that institution where you're learning, they could begin to introduce certain concepts and nurture a love of either creative or expressive arts.
Well, from what I've seen, because I also have a children's book that I've gone around the country to give out. It's not as bad as it was as when I was in school. There's a lot more to be done, and I think these young people that you will meet today are demonstrations of the efforts that are being done. But it's never enough, I would say, right? But we are doing a lot better than we used to. And also, I think the patron for this year's event, Professor Ubaldemir Guerra, can speak to that as somebody in the education system as well. But from what I can see, we are doing better. Can we do better? Yes. Are we doing better than when I was in school? Way better. Way better. But of course, it's, there's more. Let me just say one quick thing about why this was important to me. This light bulb went off in my head. I went to a museum, of course, a museum in the States, right? And I go into this modern museum, and in the corner there was a snow shovel. I know it was a snow shovel. It was a shovel to me, hanging in the corner, and it had a plaque with the artist's name. And I said, "That's a snow shovel. How is that art?" I could have hung that there. And the person I was with looked at me and said, "But did you?"
Yeah.
Did you do it? And I was like, "No." So that person did it. It's art. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it.
Yeah.
It's subjective.
It's subjective. Yeah. So there's a little bit of artist in everybody. And I want to foster that.
Yeah.
The big thing about art is, and again, Professor Guerra can talk about this, is the move from doing art and then making it public, where you share it for the public eye. That's the big step. Yeah. And he can talk a bit more about that, because
that's almost like an intimate part of you.
Exactly.
It's your mind.
Exactly.
It's your passion. It's your heart.
You're giving out something. So and he can talk about his journey with that. For me, I did it a lot later, so I was a little more, I don't really care because I was older.
Yeah.
But for a younger person, a little more sure than I was earlier.
Yeah. All right, we're going to preview, though, the Pantheon Fantastic 2023.
Belize Pantheon.
The Belize Pantheon Fantastic 2023. We have a video preview that we will be sharing with you now.
Above the landscape, a giant sleeps, his skin shrouded in hills and trees. Above the horizon, his silhouette creeps, nestled by the Caribbean breeze. The subject of stories, this hulking mass, by people of the land as times have passed. Stories spun, crafted, weaved, and told. Stories ancient, antique, archaic, and old. They speak of a man who crafted the earth. Islands he moved and the fjords he birthed. He molded mountains, the world he roamed, and so he found Belize, where he would call home. A massive figure, framed by the clouds, a stalwart figure, persistent and proud, larger than life, laying beneath the sky, laying before we live, and laying after we die. A deluge of disasters shall plague the land, earthquakes rumble, hurricanes rage, but throughout it all, the Colossus stands, unfettered and unbothered, he sleeps through the age. We look at his body and we see something more, a slumbering behemoth in silence roar, a slumbering man wowing us all, for in the face of this titan, what else can you feel but small? And yet, regardless of his massive size, he's never ignored our plights and cries. Throughout all of our beautiful sun-kissed lands, the giant cradles them with gentle hands. And so the people will tell stories of a Colossus tall, defiant. The people will tell stories of Belize's sleeping giant.
All right, we have with us the winners of the Pantheon Fantastic 2023. Hi, good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We have with us Celeste Garcia, and she's third place. She got bronze. We also have Nathan Sharp. He was first place with gold, and Ubaldemir Guerra, Pantheon Fantastic. Good morning, patrons. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let's talk about the impact of this competition, first of all, on you guys as young artists.
Well, for me, it's kind of the first time that I've ever made one of my works public. I kind of do poetry on the side as a passion project, but I've never taken that step and kind of put it out to the world. So at least for me, it's been kind of a big step.
How did you get involved, or what inspired you to become a part of it?
At first, I was exposed by my English teacher actually at school, Miss Otley, and I read the story that was provided about Chakshango and the Giants, and what really encapsulated me was the idea of the people's relationship with this sleeping giant, you know, not just the story that is explicitly there, but the relationship that it had with the people and the legend that was played up. And so in my poem, I tried to lean into that and kind of show the relationship that the people had with the giant, because I remember going on road trips as a child. I remember going on class trips, and everyone point out the window and go, "Oh my God, it's a sleeping giant!" You know?
Yep.
And seeing
Part
that
of the
story,
Belizean experience.
yeah, exactly. And seeing that as a story explicitly told, and my relationship with that story, I wanted to convey that with my poem. So, for me, it was kind of nostalgic to go back to those days and express how I felt, and talk about this larger-than-life giant, and actually putting that work out into the world was, yeah, it was cool.
And you, Celeste?
Well, for me, what inspired me to sort of do it was also my English teacher at school, Mr. Gray. And the whole thing was basically about like this story, like this great giant Chakshango, and he's just doing all these amazing stuff. So I just really wanted to link my poem to that and everything, so yeah.
How do you guys feel about the exposure that you're getting? Because certain works can be held very close and dear to the author or the poet in this case. Having it being published or put out there in the open, how do you guys feel about that kind of exposure?
I mean, for me, my whole poem's kind of basis was that relationship of the people of Belize and their sleeping giant. So it's kind of a 50-50 in which anyone who puts out a work of passion is kind of nervous for criticism or nervous for reception. But it's also amazing for me to see my work about our people's relationship to this giant be received on such a large scale, and have people appreciate it and just have that same connection to the giant that I did. So
let's switch over to Professor Guerra and your role with these young artists, as I could describe them as such. What has that been like, and how have you been able to, perhaps with your own experiences in this form, be able to guide them in their path?
Well, as a poet and as a lecturer, I have always wanted to connect with a younger audience out of my own curiosity to see, you know, what are high schoolers doing with the form? What are they doing with poetry and developing poetry? You know that in Belize, in the literary arts, you could say that poetry is one of the most developed in terms of the number of poets that have published works.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we need to see what these young people are doing with their poetry. And the way I got into this particular event as a patron is that I had worked in the previous year's competition as a judge on the panel, where fantastic works were produced, artworks, and we were brainstorming ideas for this year's competition. And you know, I said, well, I'm a poet, so naturally I suggested that, you know, poetry would be a good one. But I was also in the process where I started over the recent years to get my own work published and also to perform works of poetry.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's try to do this so that we could have a poem and a performance of the poem as part of the process, since I believe that students, young people, are very much in tune with technology that they can use to record themselves. Everybody has a phone, you know, a device that they can produce something creative with the devices that they have, right? So it was a wonderful experience working with these young people. And I'm glad I got this opportunity because it also has built my network with younger audiences and high school teachers and so on who have reached out to me to want to do different workshops and creative things that, you know, that we can expand on. And that is something I'm certainly thrilled about.
Is poetry as an art form, and I'll put it to both of you guys, is poetry as an art form still alive in Belize, considering the fact that you have other forms of expression? People are into music, people are into other, like visual arts and so forth. Where is poetry's place in all of what is happening?
Well, I think poetry has been, you know, up and down throughout the history of writing poetry. You have these moments where you have a lot of poetry coming out, but recently there are certain groups who organize events and have poetry readings and slam competitions. During this competition, I was asked to host an event, not host, but to judge an event at Paloti High School, where the young girls there participated in a poetry slam. You know, so it might not be as loud and out there in the public as it should be, but there is much going on in that field, and there is still more that could be done to develop it further. For me, in my own experience, I wrote poems for about 20 years until I thought about getting it out there in the world. Right? So there is that part of it too, because poetry is hard work. And people don't think about it like that when they see it on the page. It looks like, you know, a little bit of words on a page lined up, and anybody can do it. But if you take it seriously, it takes a lot of discipline to get up, to invest an hour a day doing what you need to do to get that poem written and edited and drafted until you say, okay, this is what I want to express, right? So if you take it that seriously, it could take you some time before you feel that you can get it out there to have it published and or performed to an audience. And that was my experience. So I guess that plays into these ups and downs that we experience, because people are writing, but not necessarily ready to share, right?
I want to say something, and Dr. Gary can chime in. I want to say something about poetry. I think one of the things that we're challenged with is that we have this notion of poetry in a box. That it's how many do you got lines and stanzas, right? The formalities of it, and structure. So we tend to be inhibited. But there's a whole world of freestyle writing that doesn't require you to any of that, and so
to conform to those,
to any of those, and there are pros and cons. So rigid structures have a role in the sense that it forces your brain to focus and discipline into these structures, and if you can write in these structures something beautiful, then that's a talent. That's like something amazing. That's what all the traditional British, which we used to read, Keats and all these people, right? They wrote in Wadsworth like that. So, but now we have this modern where you can free form, right? So for somebody who is thinking about, I cannot write a poem, if you are able to write, you can write down your thoughts. A song is a poem being sang, right? Yeah. So it crosses boundaries, and I think the idea of thinking about it in a broader way makes it more accessible. And one of the things that I want to do, and I hope we can talk about it for next year, is while schools, you asked me about how schools are doing, the schools are doing better than they were when I was in school, but I want to see some young people participate, and our age of young is 15 to 35. Right? I want to see some young people participate who are not in the institutions. Right? That may not have, that may be just at home writing it, something, because it is therapeutic, and I don't mean to use like a big word like to make it sound like you're going to the doctor, but it is good for the mind to express yourself.
Therapeutic,
yes,
though.
it is. It is good for the mind to express yourself. And so that's why this project has a different art form every year, so that you tap into different groups of people, how they express themselves. So just writing in itself is therapeutic, and I think that that's part of us growing as a nation, decolonizing ourselves, and believing that what we think and what we write, what we speak, what we produce is of value. Right? Whether it's in Creole, whether it's in Garifuna, whatever language, most of us not talk standard English. Most of we talk Creole. Right? Most of us don't speak standard English. Our first language is Creole. And we need to be proud of that and use that as part of our identity, not to take away from any other group. It should be part of the identity. But we have to have confidence. I was speaking about bravery earlier. We have to be brave enough. I'll give you one quick example. I have a friend, and he's going to kill me for saying it. I won't call his name, but he'll kill me. Used to always, I was always advocating for Creole, and he would say, oh, you know, but you can't do anything with Creole, and you always pushing this Creole thing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I still do it. A few years afterwards, he came to me and said, you know, so-and-so, the person is from Canada, introduced him, and said he speaks 2 languages. He speaks Creole and English. And he's like, wow, I speak 2 languages. He was telling me as if this was news. And I'm like, I've been telling you this for years. You took somebody from outside to come in to validate that to you. We need to get past that and be brave about what we're doing.
Just to jump on that, in our own region, there are examples of taking the local language and making a subgenre of poetry out of it. Take dub poetry, for instance, and the wonderful works and expressions that have come out of that. You know, so we still have a lot of room where we can do something similar, where we can create our own subgenre. We have our own unique way of speaking and expressing ourselves, and poetry offers that form of language, expression, creativity, right? So. So there's a lot you can do in that regard with poetry.
Wonderfully.
Wait, sorry, if I may quickly interject to your question. I think that programs exactly like the Belize Pantheon Fantastic are what kind of gives poetry a place in the modern day, because as Dr. Guerra said, with people's feeling of freedom to express and feeling of confidence to express their works, as in me, I've been doing poetry for years now, but this is the first time I've gotten it out. I feel like that's also a factor. Like, these programs helps students or young people or people who are just at home doing this as a passion project get their works out there. For me, at least, seeing the reception that my work has had, seeing the reception that last year's Belize Pantheon Fantastic, their artwork has had, seeing amazing works like the second place winners, seeing like Celeste's performance, all of these kind of contribute to that collective idea of this is what we want to do. This has value. And so other people will be inspired to put that out into Belize's kind of common culture. So I think that that's where poetry has its spot in the modern day.
Excellent. Guys, we are just about out of time, but we want to say thank you so much for joining us. Sorry? Oh, we are going to present the prizes to our winners just before we wrap things up. But of course, in the meantime, we want to say thank you guys so much for joining us. I can imagine we will be expecting even more work from you guys. And keep up the great work. Keep up the great work.
So I'll just say the awards, because to encourage people, the first place prize that Mr. Sharp won is $1,000. And $1,500, I'm sorry. $1,500, which he will get today. And the second place was a notepad. And third place, Ms. Garcia will get a cell phone.
Oh, attractive prizes. And imagine just to do something that you love. Yeah. All right, perfect. We're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation on mental health. We spoke about therapy, so we're going to take things on a little bit deeper into our second segment. We'll be joined by a mental health representative and we'll be continuing the conversation on mental health. Don't go away.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Social Security is your secure online account to manage all your social security information. My Social Security launched in March 2021 with registration service to apply online for new or replacement social security cards. Upgrades to My Social Security continues with a new look, enhanced customer experience, and its newest feature, Sickness Benefit Online application. With My Social Security, you can create your account, log in, and take control of your Social Security information. This includes applying for a new or replacement Social Security card for yourself, child, or dependent. Make appointments online and submit your complete sickness benefit claim package. Our customer care team is here to provide you, our valued customers, with real-time support. Connect with one of our customer care agents through direct messages on WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, or live chat, or follow our YouTube channel for more information. Social Security at your fingertips. My Social Security.
Are you looking for low-cost television advertising? Have we got a deal for you? Advertise on Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds is one of the most effective methods for introducing yourself and your business to the community. Use our Daily Classifieds to recruit employees, promote specials, promote your products or services, promote a business opportunity, increase traffic to your website, and advertise items you have for sale. Let us help you to save valuable time and money. Call us today at 280-0013 or visit us at our offices on Coney Drive to discuss how we can help your business grow affordably. Channel 5 Daily Classifieds. Advertise today.
Environmentally degradable plastics, or EDP, are plastics that are affected by a combination of environmental conditions that cause the plastic to break down within an acceptable time frame. They are specifically designed to degrade into carbon dioxide, water, and other biomass substances. The level of breakdown can vary based on standard test methods appropriate to the plastic. Click on the link below to see what you can do to help end the nightmare of single-use plastics. I'm Alison Castillo, and now you know.
we're moving on to our second segment, talking about mental health awareness. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are joined by Krista Courtney. She's a counselor and the vice president of the Mental Health Association. Good morning, Ms. Courtney.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. I suppose since we're having this segment, we should do a mental health check-in. How are we all doing? Yeah.
I'm pretty good this morning.
All right.
For
perfect.
a Monday.
For a Monday, in fact. Yeah, that's a good point. So we want to start things with the talk about mental health, of course. We are having an extra push this month when it comes to advocating for mental health. But I suppose my first question would be, do you think that aside from this month, we are talking about it enough?
Never. We're never talking about it enough. It's one of those things that has been, all of us have been affected. We all have mental health, whether it's ill mental health or healthy mental health. We all have mental health. Like we have heart health, like you have brain health, like you have cell health, muscle health, bone health, etc. So it's just another facet of ourselves that for a very long time we haven't really had open conversations around, but people have been affected silently for a very long time.
Yeah. One thing for me, when I think about mental health, I think about the generational gap when it comes to acknowledging the issues that come with mental health. Do you believe that the older generation are becoming more open to having that conversation?
That's a very generalized statement, and you know, some people are, some people aren't. It really just takes conversations to open it up, like with anything. When we needed to talk about difficult topics, awareness is key. Mm-hmm. The more aware you are of something, generally the less afraid you are of it. The less afraid you are of it, the more open it is for you to ask for resources, for you to reach out for help. I mean, you know that there's a cardiologist, so you go to the doctor.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know where to get help for their mental health. They don't even know that they're struggling with their mental health. They just feel this way. I can't shake it. Nothing I do helps. I keep trying to do this, but it's not working. Cycles are repeating in my life. I keep ending up in the same types of relationships. I'm treating my kids bad and I don't want to. I don't know how to do this. Can't get along at work. You know, you're just constantly having difficulties in their life and don't understand that it's highly likely that it's related to something internally that they're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
If one were to look at the landscape as it is, perhaps it can be argued that while there are conversations on mental health issues taking place either in the foreground or in the background, one could also argue that perhaps the powers that be aren't doing enough in terms of, one, raising the level of awareness that everyone should have where mental health is concerned. You mentioned earlier, some people don't even know where to access any kind of assistance dealing with these issues.
Yeah.
It's like you wake up one morning and you're depressed. You're not really sure what it is that's on your mind that's weighing you down. But who do you turn to? It's not as if though there is a facility or somewhere where you can go and seek that kind of an assistance. And that's on one side of the spectrum, if I could use that as a description. On the other side of it, on the extreme end of it, you see people who are walking around who are quote unquote crazy. I hate using that description,
mentally
but
ill,
they're mentally ill.
Have mental health issues.
Good.
Yes.
You have those people in our population, and everyone keeps asking, so where do we put them? Where do they go for help themselves? And I think a situation like that is simply because we're not educated enough to know who to turn to, where to go, where do we find acceptance if we all have a common issue that we could begin that conversation amongst each other. Where do we find that acceptance? Because the flip side of it is, whenever someone admits to having an issue people start looking at them to stigmatize. And that's a huge part of it as well.
It is.
And so people are fearful to come forward with anything that's bothering them because they don't want to be looked at as different.
Right. And so stigma reduction is a big push among our mental health counselors and people who are working in the field. And I know that it's happening, conversations are happening in little silos, not necessarily big conversations.
Out in the open.
Right, out in the open. So Mental Health Awareness Month provides an opportunity to kind of push some of those conversations to the forefront in platforms like this that, again, just kind of assist to slowly and consistently disseminate the information so that people can recognize they have a problem and then understand where to reach out for help. So Mind Health Connect is another mental health advocacy organization that I work with as well, who have done a website. And so mindhealthconnect.com, the whole push behind it as part of advocacy and stigma reduction is to make sure that people privately can have access to figuring out where's the closest resource to my area. So it's broken down by district. And on the website, we're seeking to make sure that all of the information about mental health and wellness resources that are available in the country are listed there, so that people can figure out where they need to go, whether privately, publicly, hospitals, emergency rooms, etc. So that's one way that we're attempting to address that. Who do I turn to? Where do I go? Because we hear that a lot. I'm a professional in the field. My colleague Martine is also a professional in the field. There's several of us, and people, when they do get to us, what we hear a lot is, I had no idea this existed. I didn't know the service was here. So we're obviously, my company is on social media, Mind Health Connect is on social media, but again, you know, the push is as much as you can do, and we just have to keep pushing to widen that conversation for sure.
I was saying earlier that, and it's something that has crossed my mind on a number of occasions, that it would seem that for the most part, we're only reacting to certain things, at least from the point of view of the public that's not directly engaged with persons dealing with mental health issues, that we're only reacting to certain things. But certainly in the media, that's the way it is portrayed.
But we're reacting because we see a part of the story and it touches us and we say, man, this person needs help. And so you're having an emotional reaction to something that is clearly upsetting or disturbing, and you want somebody else to deal with it. Why aren't so-and-so doing this? Why isn't this person doing more? And we become experts on how to address it. Yes, it's still it's somebody else's problem, it's not mine. Now, I'm not encouraging people to become directly involved in a situation that you're not trained to address. However, how you advocate in your community, how you talk about these people in your homes, how you relate to them on social media. I mean, anything you see on social media is a piece of the story. Even the things that you see on the news often is a piece of the story. You know, and news people try to do the best that they can to provide the full story, but even that is really challenging sometimes. So we have high opinions. There are more things that we need to do, for sure. And advocacy continues to happen for government and for the powers that be, who have a little more authority over the health system and how it's organized, to ramp up this sort of mid-level type of support for people struggling with mental illness. We do have some support for people in acute crisis, but even that is not sufficient for the level of crisis that we often experience. And so while there is something in place, it absolutely needs to be augmented.
Based on your professional experience, what mental health issues have you seen persons being faced the most with?
That's a tough one. Because people always present, you know, they come into the door because this is happening. When you look at this and you look a little bit deeper, a lot of it is trauma related. And so people who have had more than one adverse childhood experience, more than 4 or 5, things that happen in early childhood, not having enough support, and the adaptations that people make to accommodate for those situations, because we're humans and so we adapt to things, but we don't always adapt to things well. I mean, we adapt to survive, but sometimes then when you're safe, now I'm an adult, I don't need to do those things to survive anymore. the adaptations generally continue. But you don't really understand where you picked it up. You don't understand why you started to do that. And so individual therapy sometimes can assist you in pinpointing, oh, well, I don't need to do that anymore. Like, that's not working for me anymore. It worked for me then because that's all I had, but I don't need to do that now. Because even when you're safe and you're out of dangerous situations or unpleasant situations or situations that are emotionally injurious, you don't just heal and go back to being healthy. You have scar tissue, you have other things that if you don't know how to deal with it appropriately can continue to cause additional issues for you later on. Which is why people come in at 40 or 50 and they're like, this happened to me when I was 16, I haven't thought about it for 30 years and now I'm thinking about it every day. You know, and I can't get it out of my head. Because you can, a lot of people when they experience something painful, they immediately try to contain. And that's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's human, because your brain is always trying to help to protect you from splitting from itself in a way. So your brain does whatever it has access to. You don't really get to choose when something like that happens. And so the attempt to contain is a temporary solution for you to get more information, for you to emotionally process what's happening to you, for you to see what your next, because in the moment that it's happening, you don't have all those answers. You only have fragments of information. But
it's
then
almost like you're describing like dealing with grief, where
grief
like
is a big one.
Yeah, in some cases we compartmentalize and we try to put that in the recesses of our mind.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
happened. They're
it
gone. I
comes
can't do
rushing back
anything about
another
it.
Time. Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. And you see it a lot. Like initially, people are like, "Oh, I haven't cried. I'm fine," you know. Or the more answers you have, the more you understand the loss of someone, the easier it is to process. Not that it's ever easy, but you see less traumatic grief and less delayed or complex grief later on. So grief is a big one. But even, you know, losing a job, loss of a relationship, those are different types of grief that can be very traumatic depending on how it occurs. Understanding too that the initial attempt to contain then becomes suppression. And you just stuff it. And you can't talk about it, you can't hear a song anymore, you can't go to this place, you can't have certain triggers, whether it's grief or something else, right? A traumatic event, a robbery, or being assaulted, or something else. Certain smells then trigger it, and things like that. Your life just sort of shrinks, you know, and all of a sudden there's a lot of things you can't do. And when you continue to just suppress, you don't know how to bring it out and put it somewhere that it can live without disturbing you. It's like a landmine, you know, and sometimes going to seek professional help for something like that can assist you with deactivating that landmine. So we can't take the experience away from you, but we can certainly help you to reduce the disturbance that you feel as a relationship to it.
I want to touch on, and I mean, I know that as time goes by, we are speaking less and less about it, but I think it's also important to talk about the impacts of COVID-19 on our mental health. Have you seen more conversations about how that affected persons?
I'd like to see more conversations, but like anything, it just happened. We're still doing a lot of research in the field to try and understand. As a professional, we kind of can see things a little more easily sometimes because, again, we're seeing people who are in crisis. Social isolation had a big impact, right? But like with any crisis, whatever you're made of, that's what's going to come out. If you have resources, if you have good connection, you can survive it a little bit better than people that don't. Because even if your resource is limited, if you have good emotional support, you can survive a lot more than not having any and feeling very alone in that struggle. So families that had good connection and could do well generally fared a bit better. Those that didn't and don't tend to see a little more isolation, and it takes a long time sometimes, depending on your age, experiences, etc., to begin to re-engage in a meaningful way. And so some companies are still struggling because they're trying to decide, do we do hybrid? Do we let you work from home? Some people thrive working from home, some people don't. And each person's situation is very different. And I think companies are struggling to figure out, you know, which model works for everyone, but there isn't one that's going to work for everyone. It takes a lot of cooperation, takes a lot of communication. and trust.
Yeah. And so the Mental Health Awareness Month is important, where companies may have, missed the mark when it comes to really looking out for the mental health of their staff. Could you talk about the activities that you guys may have planned this month?
I'm not sure exactly what all is planned. And it's something that we're doing all the time, so I find it a little challenging. Mental Health Association, again, is been a long-standing organization that continues to advocate for policy change. They also are the primary support for the Welcome Resource Center, which is a daycare center for adults who are either mentally ill or homeless. It provides meals for them, showers, clean clothes, activities to engage with them during the day. Unfortunately, we don't have overnight care, but we're doing all that we can to try and continue to push these activities and again, create awareness and funding because everything takes money.
I think a lot of it has to do with political will at the end of the day. Because if I'm listening to you talk about the Welcome Resource Center and you're using descriptives such as daycare, and then at night or in the evening time they don't have anywhere to turn to, then that doesn't speak to the efforts being made privately as it speaks on the efforts that should be made by the government of Belize to be able to establish facilities where people could access day or night regardless of what their immediate mental situations are.
Yeah, it's always challenging. The mental health conversation is increasing and we continue, like I said, our advocacy work for that. So again, because the service that needs to be provided to persons who are struggling is so specialized, it is a huge financial line item.
Yeah.
And so it does have to be something that slowly the government will prioritize in the Ministry of Health, across ministries actually, because it is a multi-sectoral response that needs to be had. And so while you see persons in Ministry of Human Development doing certain things and they're a lot more aware of on the ground sometimes what the struggles and difficulties are, the health model tends to focus medically, right? The social model tends to focus socially. But when it comes to mental health and how it affects a human being, it takes both approaches, and often that is what we do in our field. So you'll have a therapist, but if someone looks like they might need medication to assist them in participating fully in therapy and for symptom relief, we have to refer to a psychiatrist to get that recommendation because we're not authorized to do that. But it's a team approach, and it really does take a team approach. And so the ministries have to communicate also with the Home Security and police and training. But all of those things need to work together. And that's a lot more challenging. It seems easy, but you need a lot of people, and you need a lot of people that are coordinated in their efforts. And so that's always a challenge.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to wrap things up. Is there any last words that you have in terms of the celebration of Mental Health Month?
I'd just say, it's important for you to personally decide to be an advocate. Someone that doesn't push away, but says, I wonder what would happen. Or to be more curious about mental health. There's lots of resources that you can read just to become more informed. You don't have to be a therapist, just to know that someone else's struggle is something I can't possibly speak on, but I could sit with you. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to have an answer. And I think that's the difference between talking to a friend or a family member versus talking to a professional. We're trained to carry this load with you. We're trained to know what to do. And so when you come and talk to a professional, we don't feel as helpless or hopeless or burdened in a sense. But you talk to your friend and they feel so bad for you and they just want to rescue you. They don't know what to do and it feels heavy. Or your mom or your sister. So I think it's just recognizing that you don't have to fix it, but be a listening ear and sit with somebody. And even something as simple as, I have no idea what to tell you right now. I'm just glad you shared that with me. And I'll sit here with you. And if it's really a problem and it's recycling itself, it keeps coming back, seek professional help. mindhealthconnect.com has a lot of those resources. And if there's any out there that we don't know about, please let us know.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms.
Thank you for
Krista
having me
Courtney.
again.
When we come back, we will be joined by BCVI to talk about their summer camp. Don't go away.
With eCash, bill payment is extremely convenient, and all utility companies accept eCash payments. What's even better? You get to split bills with your roommates, siblings, or whoever you desire. Simply open your eCash app, go to Bill Pay, tap the respective utility company, enter the information, and pay the bill. Then tap the transaction made. Tap Split the bill. Select Evenly. Send the request to who you are splitting the bill with, and get notified when they pay. Talk about making life easy and avoiding confusion. You can split the bill for restaurants, grocery stores, and for any eCash payment you make. To find your next yummy meal, hair treatment, or chill spot, simply open the app and utilize the geolocation service to see nearby businesses that accept eCash. Geolocation and bill payment make life a whole lot easier.
Galenia Hospital, located in Cancun, Mexico's premier tourism destination, is a state-of-the-art healthcare facility that provides highly specialized medical services. We are Quintana Roo's biggest private hospital with board-certified doctors and staff. Some of our services include Cath Lab, Adult Intensive Care Unit, Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, emergency rooms, operating theaters, ambulance services, and more. We are a medically accredited hospital by JCI, Accreditation Canada International, and General Health Council, providing extraordinary care in every specialty, from our cardiology department to our neurology center. We are focused on treating the entire person, body, mind, and spirit. Contact us at medicaltourism@hospitalgalenia.com or visit our website at www.hospitalgalenia.com. Come to Galenia Hospital in Cancun for a truly personal medical care experience.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
Smart introduces Real Unlimited Postpaid Plans, providing customers with unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data. Now that's a real great deal. With Smart Plus, Share 1 and 2, and Enterprise 1 and 2 plans, you can talk as much as you want, text as much as you want, and for the first time ever in Belize, you can enjoy unlimited data with your postpaid plan. So come in and sign up for an unlimited postpaid plan and enjoy limitless possibilities. In addition, other plans such as the Flex Junior, Choice, and Select have been boosted with a lot more talk, text, and data, providing you with the best value for your budget. Be unlimited with Smart. It's time to power your dollar with Smart.
I was 17 and in love, and I thought he loved me too. But now I know that a loving partner should not take away your choice of clothes you wear or the music you listen to. He should not take away your purse, car keys, or your phone so that when your family calls, you cannot answer. If your partner is controlling you, it is domestic violence. Call 0800 A Way Out or our cell phone number 672-9628.
And welcome back. Our final segment this morning is a conversation with our friends from the Belize Council for the Visually Impaired as they come on set this morning to discuss their summer camp. We have been joined by the coordinator at BCVI, none other than Carla Musa. Good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, Sabrina Castro, she's the rehabilitation assistant over at BCVI. Good morning once again, ladies.
Good morning.
Let's begin by talking about this summer camp. It's an annual feature for you guys to, bring all of these kids together and get them involved in the work of the BCVI. Let's start there. What can we expect this year, and what has been going on in terms of the planning for this annual event?
Well, we're actually really excited because, and everybody hates to hear the phrase pre-COVID or COVID, but this is our first camp since 2019 because of COVID. So we at BCVI, we utilize the community-based rehabilitation approach, which means that on a daily basis, our field officers are out in homes and schools and communities working with people who are irreversibly blind. Once a year for a week, this year we're doing it for a week, not 2 weeks, because it's the first time in a while, we bring all the children in the program together along with a family member, and they get to socialize. We take them on field trips and we get them prepared for the upcoming school year. So services or skills like Braille, how to use a laptop, strengthening in orientation and mobility, because we take it for granted, right? You go to school for the first day, maybe it's a new school, they tell you where the bathroom is and you find it. But for a child who is blind, we have to go through orientation and mobility to teach them the steps to be able to get to the restroom at school. So things like that to make sure that they're living as independently as possible, but also have a chance to see each other, and they're super excited about that, just being able to socialize and be together again after so many years.
I can imagine. I'll say I did not know about the BCVI summer camp, and it's already so impactful just learning that you guys interact with a population that is so in need of help, with of course the intention of having them be as independent as possible. Can you talk to us about the number of persons that would attend the camp?
Yeah, well, Sabrina is on the ground and she actually works on a daily basis in the homes and schools and has been contacting our clients to see who's going to be able to make it this year.
So this year we have about 25 kids that will be attending along with one guardian. So we will be hosting the summer camp at Stella Maris, so we'll be housing about 50, the 25 kids along with their parent, about 50 individuals.
What do you have planned for them this year?
Well, the first day will be Saturday, which will be the 15th of July. We have them, the students, the patients, they'll be coming in. We'll be registering them in, getting them settled, having the kids get a feel around of the campus. The Sunday, we have a golf ski trip planned for them.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah. On the Monday, the Tuesday, we will be having teaching them to Braille, orientation and mobility, teaching those that need to know how to use the cane, be getting them around, walking them around. In the evening, we'll be having activities for them. We also have a Wanacasta Park trip for them as well.
Wow. A lot of excursions.
Yes. We try to get them to see as much as possible of the country, and we had started working with Sea Charters of Belize and CZMAI who would help us get the kids out to golf ski, and that's one trip that they don't want to ever have removed, because that's what everybody's looking forward to, even us, just getting to be free and be out there and have a great time.
Talk to me about the reaction of the parents, because during summertime, we expect a lot of summer camps. But as you mentioned, or as we mentioned, the disabled community, disabled children aren't always able to participate in these camps. Could you talk to us about the reaction of families, the parents, just knowing that there's something for their children?
I think they've been waiting for it to come back around. And what we noticed, I think with us just as individuals, as grown-ups, and you think about children especially too, the mental health and sort of what everybody has been through emotionally in the last few years is very important to address. And so we're looking also at a section of sort of just talking and therapy along with your previous guest, Ms. Krista, who will come in and be able to talk to parents. And we noticed at the camp we had in 2019 that it really, just as much as it is for the children, for the parents, because you then get to lean on other parents who know what you're going through, right? And when you bring that mental health and emotional well-being component into it, then you have a professional who is able to help guide parents and children through whatever it is that they might be going through. So we are going to be focusing a bit on that this year as well, just to check in with everybody and see how we can help in that respect as well.
So there's been a gap since 2019 when you last had your summer camp activities, and now I'm trusting that you guys have been in touch with a lot of the kids who were participating at that time. What has their reaction or their growth and outlook been like during that interim?
I think it's been difficult for everyone. You know, we were told at the beginning of COVID, don't let anyone, you know, touch you, don't let anyone into your house, you can't be face-to-face with people, you have to be careful. Our work is community-based rehabilitation. So you then have external people needing to go into your home, needing to hold your hand and teach you how to use a cane. For a person who is blind, who's in a new environment, it's very much about having a sighted guide. So you will have to be very physically close, holding on to that person as you use your cane to maneuver. So if you imagine the disconnect and what it was like for the entire community of people who are blind during that year, maybe year and a half. So there was a bit of a warming up that it took to kind of have people let us back into their homes. Then a lot of our homes are multi-generational, so you have high-risk grandparents or aunts living in those homes, and makes it even more difficult for us, you know, to come in and sort of provide those services. Kids are very resilient though, you know, and I think that we have a lot to speak of the families that support the children in our program, who have been there for them, working with us over the phone, you know, perhaps over Zoom calls, even looking at the work we did with teachers when everybody was going back to school, training sessions online, just to help the teachers know how they could help the children as best as possible. So, you know, the reception has been really good, but especially now that things sort of feel back to normal, and WHO has declared that, you know, it's no longer a pandemic or a crisis. So I think, you know, people are just happy to be able to really engage in the service once again, and we're thrilled that we can, you know, work to our fullest as well.
Do you have a cap on the number of kids that you want to be able to interact with this summer, or is it just open to anyone?
I would say it's just for the
initial 25?
The initial 25. Yeah. We did call quite a few, but due to, you know, some parents, to be honest, some of them are still not open to the idea of having their kids out with everyone.
But I mean, in case we haven't been able to reach anyone, it really is to target all the children in BCVI's program. So any child who has been diagnosed as irreversibly blind or severely low vision, you know, if you haven't heard from us yet, parents, contact us so that we can get your child registered for the camp.
Wonderful. All right, well, any last words in regards to the BCVI summer camp?
Well, thank you for having us on here, because a big part of what we do at BCVI and our rehab program especially is completely free of cost to our clients. So really what we need support in is with contributions and donations to make it possible. 40% of our budget of what we're trying to raise is so that we can purchase all the supplies the children need. So Braille typewriters, laptops, canes, talking calculators, things that we can't find here in Belize. BCVI sources those, brings them, and then we give them to everyone in our program. So we appreciate any support that we can get to be able to do that, and then to be able to host them, bring them to the city, and take them on these trips also is something that we're looking for support in.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you ladies so much for joining us. We are going to our final break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap things up.
The last time we visited Miss Francesca Howers was to deliver the exciting news that she was chosen to receive a home sponsored by SMART for its 18th anniversary through the Hand in Hand Ministries housing program. Since then, she has actively been participating in attending Saturday sessions to improve her life skills, cleared her property for its foundation and construction of her home, and has assisted in the construction of a home for another recipient of Hand in Hand Housing Program. All these activities are to foster a more responsible, responsive citizen in our community.
Your life just got a lot less complicated with Belize Bank Contactless MasterCard Debit Card. Introducing our Standard Debit and MasterCard Platinum Debit Cards. Now you can make purchases anywhere MasterCard is accepted with one tap, pay and go. Your contactless card never has to leave your hands, especially in these times. And your card is embedded with multiple layers of security. Platinum card holders get to enjoy extra benefits like price protection, purchase protection, trip inconvenience, and luggage protection, just to name a few. Start enjoying a cashless lifestyle today with the Belize Bank.
Messi! Off goal! What a goal from Leo Messi! What an incredible strike from Leo Messi! Neymar and Messi is standing over this. Messi! Off goal! What a goal from Leo
Great entertainment stays with you, and we bring you great entertainment. Next Gen, the ultimate digital experience.
When hungry or craving, when laughter or tears, enjoy the best snacking or flavors are here. Asadas, bocadas, chiladas, doradas, Belizean for snacking, done right and done here.
Done right, done here.
Wrapping things up on a lovely Monday morning. Of course, it was an informative day. We had some rich conversations in our 3 segments. And of course, it's always a pleasure to be hosting with you, Isani. I definitely enjoyed the conversations that we had from coronation to colonation, all the way down to what we can expect this summer from summer camps at BCVI and mental health. Yeah.
I think, and again, it's not to overstate, because you can't possibly overstate issues that deal with mental health, you know, and it's one of those conversations that, you know, in a sense I'm very passionate about, because there isn't enough, in my opinion, that's being done to really address these types of issues. And so while it was a short segment, it was informative nonetheless in terms of the work that the Mental Health Association does, Mind Health Connect, the Welcome Resource Center, all of these stakeholders that, you know, come together to be able to assist this population of Belizeans. So that conversation to me is one of my, you know, favorites in terms of what we discussed this morning.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as we wrap things up, we want to send a birthday shout out. We want to say happy birthday to Merlin Romero. We hope that you have a wonderful day today and an even better rest of your week. Of course, if you have any birthday shout outs, you can send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Happy birthday to you and everyone else celebrating a birthday. Tune in tomorrow, though, on our Open Your Eyes Facebook page. Our Facebook page is Open Your Eyes BZ, but you can also check out behind the scenes on Instagram at OYEBZ. Until then, thank you guys so much for joining us, and join us again tomorrow as you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
Have a great one, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.